Germany. So Germany, if we remember sharing the screen here, in our system general names, we're going to call this socialized insurance. Now, you've heard the word socialized passed around a lot. What is this going to mean? Are we in a socialized system? Let's find out. We're going to have a real definition for this, what socialized insurance is going to be. Socialized insurance. What this means is that the employer and the employee are responsible for financing the healthcare payments. I'll say that again. Employer and employee responsible for financing the healthcare payments. So the difference with socialized is that it's all coming through the work network. National was single payer system, the whole government's in charge of it. Public contracting, the government's in charge of it, but you have individual contracting units that can bargain for their consumers. Here, it's going to be employer-employee. So, quick question, is the U.S. socialized insurance system? Is the ACA socialized insurance? Well, yeah, kind of, right? Because the ACA mandated that employers over 50 employees had to offer health insurance. So in that way, it was a socialized insurance system. Now, it wasn't less than 50. And actually, the U.S. was doing that already. A lot of the big employers offer insurance. We've talked about why, I think we have. But why is because you want to hire a good worker and you could pay them a higher wage, or you could give them really good health insurance, especially if you get a tax subsidy, you can pay them more in health insurance than you could pay them in dollars. This is important. So if I could pay you $100, how much are you going to get to keep of that? 1/3 tax rate, maybe you get to keep $66 and you can buy that to buy your Corvette. $66 of Corvette, not going to get very far. Or I could pay you $100, but it's pre-tax if the employer gives it to you in the form of health insurance. So I can give you $100 worth of health insurance rather than $66 for you to do whatever you want with. So it's tied. It can only buy health insurance with it, but you can pay a lot more. So that's why it already was in place as a compensation system in the U.S. Previous to the ACA, we were not socialized insurance. This was just something that companies discovered it was good to do to attract workers, and workers liked. So nothing was mandated. No one had to do it. It just happens in the market because it's a useful thing and people want it. And because of that pre-tax incentives, that definitely changed it. So back to Germany, it's mandated in Germany. So complete system. What they're called, the main drivers in Germany are called sickness funds. And I would have a little whiteboard if my daughter would let me use it. Too bad. They're called sickness funds, and these are the third-party payers. So they're basically, again, like a Blue Cross Blue Shield, except they're non-for-profit and they're not private enterprise per se, the way we think about it here. And with your employer, you can choose a sickness fund you want to be in. So not like the UK, not localized, you pick from a sickness fund. And in fact, you can pick a nicer version of a sickness fund if you want to pay more for it. There's sort of the government baseline level, but if you are richer and want to use that money to buy a normal good, to buy a good that you value, you can buy a higher value sickness fund. So not localized, the sickness funds are what are doing everything. If you look in the financing, what is different about Germany versus the others, versus Canada, it's payroll taxes mainly. It says general taxes too, because they do have another stopgap for those that are not employed. They need to have retired and unemployed. So that's coming through general taxes, but otherwise it's a payroll tax, just like the United States. So if Wake Forest contracts with Blue Cross Blue Shield to offer insurance, they're going to pull your premiums from your paycheck, and they're also going to contribute premiums from their payment to you. So when you look on your paycheck, you can see what your employer is paying and what you are paying. Remember, econ students, this is all elasticities. So there's some total amount, and it's never going to be split evenly. Whoever pays the most is the most inelastic. So whoever can leave the fastest is going to have to pay the least. I don't know if that's the employer or the worker here, but it's not going to be an even split, even though your paycheck says it is. So payroll and general taxes, that's the financing. It's still a single payer system in the sense that none of these sickness funds are independent competitive entities. They're all supervised by the government. But just the person that handles the transaction is a sickness fund, and that's going through the employer. So that's Germany. You can look a little bit about their reimbursement to hospitals. Fixed payments. We've talked about why could fixed payments be useful. You don't have incentive to do extra things. Negotiated point fee for service to physicians. This isn't unique to Germany, but let me talk a little bit about point systems. The problem we saw when you only have one payment system is that I'd really like to get just the healthy people. If you're going to pay me some price to take care of this condition, I'm going to get the healthier people that have that condition so I can make a better profit. Because if I take the really sick people and I do extra work, then I'm not going to get paid. So that seems bad, right? You're not taking care of sick people. The way that we fix this, or the way the US fixes it, a lot of other countries, so you'll probably see it as you go through any other healthcare system, is that we can assign some kind of weighting scheme, points about how hard a procedure is, or you can also assign it on the patient side if you take into account they're called comorbidities. So if they have heart disease and diabetes and high cholesterol, they're going to assign a higher weight and to indicate that they were sicker and they're harder to take care of and probably more expensive. And then you adjust the payments that way. So when you look in Germany's column, they call it negotiated point fee for service. Negotiated point means that they're taking into account how hard is the procedure and kind of what is the intensity and things like that. So they have fee for service, but they're trying to adjust the price list to take into account how difficult things are and how sick their patients might be. The US kind of does that too. If you read anything about DRGs, diagnosis relevant groups, I can't remember. It's a DRG. Everyone just calls it that, so I have already forgotten. But DRG is our way of doing that, trying to look at how intense this sickness is and to adjust the payment system accordingly. Okay. Physician choice is unlimited because it's going through your employer rather than going through some kind of fixed geographic region. All right. I'm going to leave an overview of all the US features compared to everyone else. Little bit about pros and cons of socialized insurance. So let's talk about the pros. We've mentioned in class that why are you at a firm? Well, you're at a firm probably because you have a skill set and a certain career interest and you are located in some area that has that firm. All of those things are unrelated to your health conditions probably. It's unrelated to your genetic history of cancer, whether you like economics or you like something else, or you like art. So that is a good thing because that means when we're pooling all these people at an employer, they're not pooled because they all had cancer and wanted to pick this one plan. So you have a variety, diversity, which means you're going to have more general risk pooling and that'll be cheaper. That's good. The bad thing about pairing this up with the employer is, of course, now you can have two bad shocks at the same time. In the US, if you lose your job, you often lose your health insurance. And so now this is not a good insurance system, right? If you have one bad shock and it actually relates to two, you would like insurance to kick in when you have a bad shock. And now it's explicitly gone. So that's bad, though Germany's going to have a system for if you're unemployed, that's going to be taken care of. So they've partially solved that problem. And the other thing that's good about being an employer is they're usually large. Bigger pools is good. So that's an advantage that Germany has. And I think that's all.